I'm Jim Check. Welcome back to the work week. With me, Ian Burns. Almost forgot your name. Ian Burns in our nation's capital in Ottawa there. I'm in Kelowna, British Columbia. Beautiful day here in Kelowna. And we're ready to kick off the work week, and we got your news here on the really big show. Lots going on. Carney refuses to rule out Canadian boots on the ground in Ukraine. Carney, road trip warrior to Europe, though. And what do we got to show for it? Liberal tough talk turns to mush, and nothing to show for another liberal subsidy scheme. And Poilievre pulls ahead in the polls, and that and a lot more on the really big show. You ready to go there, Mr. Burns? As
You've
they
remembered
said on
my name
Homer
now.
Simpson, yabba dabba doo. Is that what happens on the yabba dabba doo? That's
Just got to do this, haven't I?
What's that?
That's
Mr.
what,
Burns,
that's what
yeah.
Mr. Burns likes to do, yeah.
Carney is truly, when they said that he was a European, he truly is. I think this is his third trip or even fourth trip to Europe since becoming PM. That's all under 150 days. Like he's got some frequent flyer miles there. One of his first stops was in Ukraine there, and he says that Ukraine is on the front line in the struggle for freedom and sovereignty. And after 3 years, Ukrainians urgently need more military equipment. So Canada's answering the call, providing $2 billion for drones, armored vehicles, and critical resources. My question is, when are we going to spend some money on the Canadian military? It seems like we have a lot of money to throw around. And at least when Trump was throwing around money now, he's getting something for it. What are we getting in return for? Another pledge of another $2 billion.
Well, Trump is getting something. If you read that, approximately 500 million US dollars for the purchase of military equipment sourced from the United States.
Being purchased from the US of A. So Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and all those things are profiting. And meanwhile, we're dishing out more money. And listen to a couple of his speeches there. And here you listen to Trump. Trump's trying to make advances towards peace. And Carney sounds like he's beating the war drum.
Well, it's a very strange situation, but it's almost kind of like good cop, bad cop. But the bad cop in this situation is, the weakest party. It's quite a strange situation, but it's obviously what Trump would prefer. He's very much not a boots on the ground kind of guy. So I think he's said to, I think this is probably part of the deal that he's arranged with the Europeans, is that there's no way we'll put soldiers on the ground if we do get a peace. Like, you're definitely going to have to do that. And Carney, as well as those Europeans, apparently is keen to join in. But I would be very surprised if it was more than a token number. But I mean, there are people in Canada who, quite justifiably will say that even one soldier in a war zone that's got nothing to do with us is too many. So it's still going to displease people.
But even his rhetoric seems to be beating a war drum. And I interviewed, and we're going to talk about it later, I interviewed two people from Ukraine here on Friday here, including a young man, 17 years old. But, these people don't seem to have much problem with sending more people into the meat grinder. But Carney says, like I said, he won't rule out. We got a little clip here to play. And see if this strikes confidence in your mind. Let's play this clip here. We're just trying to get it all on. Just start playing it when you can. There you go. I was just giving you a preface. I used the word He uses it a lot when he talks. You can expect, you can go ahead and try and count the ums when he speaks there.
He's also often likened to Mr. Burns, isn't he? Just like me. So
what's going on there?
Okay. Thank you for the question. With respect to security guarantees, I think we all recognize that the core of the security guarantee, the front line, the foundation, is robust Ukrainian armed forces. And it's crucial in those regards that the military equipment today and tomorrow is here, the industrial capacity is here. It's crucial that the training capacity is there as well. And I'd note that since Russia's illegal seizure of Crimea, Operation Unifier, which Canada put in place, has trained over 45,000 Ukrainian troops. This will become even more important going forward. That's the front line, but that's should be buttressed by the coalition of the willing, potentially the United States, in matters of intelligence and other support. We are working through with our allies in the coalition of the willing and with Ukraine the modalities of those security guarantees on land, in the air, and the sea, and I would not exclude the presence of troops. Yeah.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
En français,
He puts a lot of words in there just to seem like he's saying something, but you could cut that down to almost one sentence.
Yeah, I don't know why he uses it. Like, I've said this so many times. Mark Carney is obviously not a stupid man. I think he would be stupid if you said he was stupid. But why does he speak like a stupid person? Why does he use words like modalities? That's a word
He's
that a
just putting
stupid
in
person
words.
uses to try and sound like they're not that stupid. They're not as stupid as they actually are.
Yeah.
It's terrible, and it just gets worse and worse. Like, that was one of the worst ones for stuttering and clearly not knowing what he was trying to say.
The only
And
thing
he's
that
had
I
quite
got
a
out of
few
that,
disasters so far.
what I got out of that is he couched his American thing and potentially the Americans. You know, he's not speaking for the Americans at this point. But if you go and listen to more of his speeches there, he really seems to be beating the war drum, and I don't understand why Canada would be leading the beating of a war drum. Doesn't make much sense to me.
Not a lot of this has made much sense to me, really, especially since he was excluded from the big meetup at the White House. I wonder if maybe it's to try and make up lost ground because of his lack of a presence there. Not many people are going to remember that he was excluded from that big meeting. That was only last week, wasn't it? Or very recently. So now this is like a fresh news agenda. But something I found really weird is his office sent out a press release. And the second sentence of that press release is, "At this hinge moment, Ukraine is once again at the front line of the struggle between democracy and authoritarianism." I'm trying to think what you're talking about. When has that been the case in the past? And the only thing I can think of is the end of the Cold War and the fracturing of the Soviet Union. But it's not like Ukraine rebelled against the Soviet Union. Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia all decided to dismantle the Soviet Union. It was kind of based on conversations. So it wasn't like, I just don't understand what he's talking about, or the PMO is talking about. And unless they're trying to talk about the Second World War, but anybody with even a tiny bit of knowledge of the Second World War, in the context of Ukraine, knows that it was very, very complicated. Lots of Ukrainians fought for the Nazis and looked at the Germans as heroes. So that's not really a democracy and authoritarianism kind of struggle. I just feel like, once again, Ukraine is so complex. Eastern Europe is so complex. And I just feel like, once again, a Western power has tried and failed to understand Ukraine and Eastern Europe. And that is a little bit frightening, isn't it, when it could involve soldiers on the ground.
And he did put out a few tweets there trying to stay relevant, saying that he invited Zelensky to Banff there, or Kananaskis, like trying to make him seem like he was relevant because he got cut out of that meeting there at the White House. And since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in February 22, Canada has committed nearly $22 billion for assistance to Ukraine. That's the highest per capita contribution among G7 countries. And we have the lowest GDP per capita. Like, where do we keep getting the money? Like, again, like Trump says, this is Europe that has to worry about this more. Why is Canada sticking its face in there giving money we don't even have? Just ridiculous.
Interesting, isn't it? And we're going to talk about Poland shortly, but it's rather interesting that we're not giving them the thing that they really wanted, the Poles, which was gas, obviously, and the rest of the Europeans wanted that, which would also help us make money, which we could then use to give to Ukraine if we wanted to. At least then we would have a plan for making the money as well as giving it away.
But a lot of this money that Canada and many other nations have given Ukraine ends up in the pockets of the American military complex. Everybody should know that too. So,
And yeah, and a lot of it goes to places like Turkey as well. I think that's Turkey's been a big supplier of equipment to Ukraine. So I mean, and Turkey's hardly a model democracy. It's not, and it's not necessarily a great friend of Canada's.
And here it is. Trump envoy says officials working very, very hard on ending Russia-Ukraine war, where it seems like that Carney visit there was like riling it up for some strange reason. It's not like they're actually assisting in the peace talks. They're actually, it seems to be riling it up. It doesn't make any sense. But after he left Ukraine, he visited Kiev there. He's off to Poland there and just launched the Canada-Poland Strategic Partnership, moving ever closer. A lot of photo ops, a lot of talk, but not a lot of beef. You know what I mean? Like, where's the deal? Where's the beef? Like, where's a deal?
Well, there's the vague chat about, increase in the ties in defense and stuff like that, but it's not like a huge deal, is it? It's not something that's going to be accompanied by fireworks and national anthems and stuff like that. It's just
Well, again,
it's
Canada
just yet
has
another one of these Ukraine themed handshakes that we've seen so many of over the last few years.
another trip to Europe, a European Union. He identifies when in a recent interview there that he identifies as European. So that's got to be a record for a Canadian Prime Minister, 3 times to Europe in less than 150 days. I can't remember another Prime Minister going there that often, and nothing to show for it yet. Nothing.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And that's the real kick in the gonads, isn't it? Is like he promised us, and he sort of like hinged his entire campaign to be Prime Minister on this idea that we would go and find friendship in Europe, and we would find everything that we needed in Europe: defense, trade. It was all going to be there. And yet, it's only been a few short months, really, hasn't it? But as things have transpired, the Europeans have picked the Americans over Canada, because why wouldn't they? Canada wasn't even offering them anything like, LNG or something that they might actually want. Canada was just offering them like, let's go back and pretend that it's like the year 2000 and we live in this sort of liberal la la land. Obviously, the Europeans don't want to buy that, do they? So the Europeans have all just cut deals with Trump and don't care about Canada.
They've offered a few barrels of virtue signaling. I don't know how much you get a barrel for virtue signaling, but not much.
It used to be worth a lot. I think its value used to be very high, but the Europeans have been slapped into reality over the last sort of 10, 15 years or more, and then they're not buying it anymore. There's an oversupply of that in Europe, so I think Carney, as I've said many times, we have both said, he's just out of date. He's just yesterday's man, and he doesn't understand the world. That's increasingly my impression.
3 trips to Europe. How many deals? 0. Trump, I think 1 trip to Europe, deal with the UK, deal with the European Union. And they came to him to sign those deals. And what did they sell?
Came to his golf course.
What did they sell? LNG. They sold LNG, stuff that we refused to sell them because we said there was no business case. What does Canada have to sell? Really? Energy and minerals.
I mean, we do have that nuclear deal with Poland, but that's a bit sort of flimsy as well, isn't it? It's not as hard as like an LNG contract or anything like that, which is like a pretty sort of strong agreement if you can get one of those signed.
We're going to sell them a small modular reactor, which is 10 years away.
But the Americans, you say they sold LNG, but they also sold, he effectively Trump effectively monetized the US military, didn't he? He's basically said, you can pay for it. We're selling you the military, and we're also selling you like diplomatic cover and things like that. You can buy it if you want. And obviously the Europeans have said yes.
And he forced the Europeans to invest in America. I think it was $600 billion that they have to invest in the United States. Same thing. And they got tariffs, and America got no tariffs. Same thing in the UK. And we got 0. We don't even have a deal. We won't get rid of that supply management. Where's our deal with the UK? That should be easy. If him and Keir or Starmer are such good buddies, where's the deal?
The British and the Europeans don't want to sign, although they have they've almost signed free trade deals with Canada, but they're not quite over the finish line yet. But the reason they're not over the finish line is because the Europeans and the British really despise supply management, and they don't want to be in a free trade agreement with a country that has Soviet-era economic policies and protectionism. It's kind of understandable. It does go against everything that Canada claims to stand for. So the
Yeah.
Europeans aren't interested in that. And we've known this for ages. This has been out there for a long time, and nothing seems to happen.
Here's an opinion piece out of the Globe and Mail. Where is the clear economic direction that Mark Carney promised? That's a good question. Where is Waldo? Or where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Like, where is it? That's a good question, isn't it? Like, where is it? And then let's play this clip here from Melanie Jolie when they first started putting on the thing, because we forgot, like, when you got back from holidays and forgot to do Fool of the Day, but Melanie Jolie reminds me of that thing that we need to do.
Let's just say she won. She won all the ones we didn't do. She probably won.
Let's play this clip on how we're going to punish the Americans with tariffs here. Let's go ahead.
We've led the charge because we didn't launch this trade war, and we know that there are no winners in a trade war, but we came up with $60 billion worth of counter tariffs on American goods in Canada. And also, the Prime Minister Carney, just announced that we will also retaliate 25% tariffs against auto and auto parts that are not covered by the trade deal we have with the U.S. So basically, American cars and American parts coming to Canada but are not compliant.
What is the reaction from the White House to that? Because Donald Trump said on so-called Liberation Day that any country that tries to retaliate, that he will increase further the tariffs.
We're defending ourselves. We never started this trade war. And it is clear to us, knowing so well the American people, that the American people don't agree with the actions coming out of the White House. And, Shauna, the only way for President Trump to back off on his trade war is for American people themselves to say it's enough. And they are the ones that can create the political pressure within their own system to make sure that that's the case. And that's exactly why we launched an advertising campaign in 12 Republican states, red states, which clearly states what tariffs are, which it is, tariffs are clearly a tax on hardworking Americans. Tariffs are also a tax at the gas pump. Tariffs are also a tax on their grocery bill. So we've made it clear to the American public, and we're seeing that there is a lot of frustration within American society towards what's happening now. Now, I think we have to retaliate. We need to defend ourselves. And so...
I can't even listen to it. She says in one breath that, the tariffs that Trump puts on is a tax. And at the same time, they put tariffs on, which is a tax. Do you know what I mean? Listen to yourself, Melanie. You're saying that the tariffs that Trump puts on taxes the American people. And in the next breath, you say, we're taxing them. We're putting tariffs on their products, which is a tax on Canadian people. Their economy.
It also, in hindsight, doesn't it? It just looks like such a misjudgment to assume that Canada could put tariffs on American companies, American goods, and that would cause a kind of enormous groundswell of opposition within the United States that was sufficiently strong to force Trump to back down. I mean, in retrospect, that just seems so naive, doesn't it? Because if you think of all the opposition groups that are lined up against Trump, who are getting absolutely nowhere, there's no, just think about Roe v. Wade, abortion, one of the most explosive issues in the United States. Even they haven't succeeded in getting anything out of him. I mean, nobody even talks about abortion anymore. But the naive ministers in charge of Canada, the Canadian ruling class, thought that they could upset Harley Davidson manufacturers or something like that, orange juice salesmen in Florida, to such an extent that it would change Donald Trump's mind on that. I mean, that just seems hopeless, doesn't it? Looking back at it now.
You know what else we did? We gave the American media more money. We spent useless ads in American media trying to rile up the Republican base. All we did.
Well, not just American media, but also the likes of Mark Zuckerberg, a friend and ally of Donald Trump's and donor to Donald Trump. the Liberal Party and the federal government under the Liberal Party's control also gave millions of dollars to that individual, to his company.
Do you think Melanie Jolie would ever watch what she just said and then look at the reality of today and feel some like humiliation? Or do you think she just is like completely blind to what she says and does?
Well, what I'd say you and I have probably seen about a similar amount of Melanie Jolie talking, many hours, hundreds of hours of that, I'm sure. In all that experience that you've got, have you ever one time seen Melanie Jolie express any kind of contrition or any kind of
Never.
any suggestion from Melanie Jolie whatsoever that maybe she acknowledges that she's made a mistake and needs to be better next time? Because I can say honestly, I've never seen that once from her.
Never. And let's just listen to the CBC here in this little hot mic piece here when they're getting ready for the big announcement when Mark Carney capitulated on all the tariffs that they put on the Canadian people. There were taxes on Canadian people.
The onus is on Mark Carney to, I think, explain today's moves in the larger context and why this makes sense given all we've heard over the last few months and years about the value of retaliatory tariffs.
Nothing. And then this next one here, and this is a Toronto Sun piece. Elbows down, Carney ends Canada's self-inflicted grocery tax. We did this to ourselves again. And did we lose Ian, or is he just there? Anyway, just self-inflicted stuff. There he's back.
Weird. I was there the whole time, but I just disappeared.
There you go. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Again, we don't have CBC's budget. Not even, like, they get, what, $1.55 billion. And what do you think they're doing a good job with it? I don't know. I asked the people that are watching. Do you think they're doing a good job with it? I don't know. Because they're sure trying to sell right now that this is a victory, that Carney took those tariffs off as a victory for Canada. I'm just like, talk about a really bad sales pitch.
I mean, as much they're obviously laughable, aren't they? They're beneath contempt, really, CBC. But I would say on the broader issue of Mark Carney and his kind of what he's achieved so far or not achieved, like, in a way, I'm sure lots of people are finding it quite funny, and they're relishing it because he was advertised as some kind of superhero that was going to fix everything. The cynics knew that was nonsense. So I suppose a lot of people will feel gratified to see that they were right. But ultimately, I would say it's a catastrophe. It's only a sad story as far as I'm concerned, because Canada really needed leadership. It really needed a good run, didn't it? And as it becomes more and more obvious that Mark Carney, seems at least at the start of his prime ministership to be something of a failure already, that's just tragic news for Canada and Canadians, and it means that everything will be worse for all of us that live here. So it's a disaster, isn't it, that he's so far proved to be a failure.
Well, this lady, the Lana Payne, we've heard from her in the past, too, the National Unifor president, says that he's gone too far with his trade concessions and said that Carney's elimination of $30 billion in retaliatory tariffs was not an option. Backing down with concessions is not an option. And she's the lady that wanted to seize assets, so you remember that? When early on she wanted to seize assets of Canadian companies that wanted to leave. She said Trump attacks autos, steel, aluminum, forestry sector, hurting Canadian workers. Walking back counter-tariffs isn't an olive branch. It only enables U.S. aggression. And so she's got that, like really attack there. She uses a hockey analogy as well. This is the big game when you go hard in the corner. Oh, that was Carney telling that. You go hard in the corners, elbows up. The time of the game when we drop the gloves, and also time, and we've already heard all this. And I mean, I'm not sure. Like, I don't even think we're playing in the same league. If the other league is the NHL, we're maybe best a junior B team at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting that she says here, Lana Payne. She says, walking back counter tariffs isn't an olive branch. It only enables more U.S. aggression. But if you look at the other sort of countries that have behaved spinelessly towards Donald Trump, like Britain, it hasn't resulted in more U.S. aggression. If anything, the Americans have been really positively disposed to Britain because Britain was so spineless and gave them everything that they wanted. So I don't think Trump doesn't seem to be he's not operating in that way. It's not like if you give up, he'll just like destroy you completely. It's not really like that. It seems if you give up, he'll brag about how great he is to his cult. They'll love that, and then he'll actually end up being quite nice to you in bilateral relations. So I just don't think there's any evidence to back up her point there.
Yeah, because I mean, cabinet invoked those retaliatory tariffs. That was under Trudeau on March 4th, and Trudeau at the point said that Trump was trying to destroy Canada, and he said his goal is to destroy Canada and annex the country, and he was trying to drive fear. That seems what he wants. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland said they would never surrender to punitive border taxes. If you hit us, we'll hit you back. And let me be very, very clear: our sovereignty is not up for negotiation. We'll never give in to economic coercion. And all this tough talk painted them into a corner that was really hard to get out of. But the media, again, the government-funded media, selectively funded media, is trying to do their best on damage control. And then Poilievre had a comment there. You think you get something in return. And Poilievre told reporters, we got nothing. But again, if you go read the media, the national media, this is making it sound like it was like a good deal, that it was Carney that decided to remove the retaliatory tariffs. I don't think anybody even wants to explain to the Canadian taxpayer that the grocery prices were going up. A food professor was one of them, because of our retaliatory tariffs, right? We were taxing ourselves. Taxes or tariffs are a tax on Canadian consumers.
I think a lot of people had a bit too much faith in the free market, didn't they? They thought, the federal government thought, we'll put these taxes on products that come out of the US where there are loads of different options, like oranges and stuff like that. But I think for the first time in history, they've believed that the free market would actually work and do what it's supposed to do. In reality, that's not how it works, is it? So the American products have probably ended up being cheaper even now, and as a consequence, by putting tariffs on them, it is actually increasing inflation in groceries in particular.
Well, what the Liberals are good at is subsidy programs. They weaken industries and then create a subsidy scheme. And here's another example. A federal subsidy program that gave away, ready for this, $130 million on a promise of promoting business startups and creating jobs, achieved neither. Imagine that. Man, are you surprised? Yet, says the Department of Industry report, auditors could not identify a single startup or count any net job creation, despite claims of then Trade Minister Mary Nigg. Fund receipts reported using funds for startups, even though not funded for this purpose. No new businesses were funded. Auditors examined the Women's Entrepreneurship Fund, a fund that launched in 2018 with a mandate of helping women-led businesses grow. The fund paid grants up to $100,000 to small and medium-sized business owned and operated by women. And then PM Trudeau called the subsidy essential. Full and equal participation of women in the economy is essential to Canadian competitiveness. Again, another $130 million. The fund auditor said of the 3,148 businesses that applied for the grants, 322 were accepted at 100. Get this, 322 accepted at $130 million. All 322 were already in business. Imagine how you get selected for this 322 to divvy up $130 million. Numerous grant recipients falsely claim they were startups, wrote auditors. It's possible this was due to lack of clarity. Fewer than half of the subsidized business, 41%, that they used their grant to create jobs. Zero net job creation under the fund.
How many stupid programs like this have we seen? It almost gets like, just gets like boring, doesn't it? It's like, this is just an almost everyday occurrence under this government.
Here's a comment from Dan Knight. $130 million gone, not a single job, no one startup, just another Liberal payout scheme. Again, 322 people, 322 businesses were funded for $130 million. That's a pretty good funding. And nothing. You'd think something out of all that. And here's Eva Chipwick. She's been vilified out there too. Elected officials who steal and misappropriate public funds should face jail. I mean, she's making some strong things there, because we know that nothing's going to happen. We can't even get the documents for the accusations or allegations towards Stephen Jabot's company. That, what was that, $250 million? Still no documents.
God knows. But
Still
I mean,
no documents.
There's a lot of talk here about this being useless and worthless and all the rest of it. But I'm inclined to agree with some of what Justin Trudeau said when he said that the subsidy is essential. I think it was essential, and subsidies like this are essential to continuing with the Liberal government and to continue having the Liberal government being, as it is in the most recent poll, 8 points ahead with women. Because this is, like we've discussed many times,
buying votes.
This is the box with women next to it, and this is a little check. This is like, okay, we've done women. Now let's move on to LGBT, and then we'll do Muslims, and then this is kind of how this party operates. And I feel like if you haven't figured that out yet, then you haven't been paying attention. It's not about the program. It's not about the economic success. That's a load of bollocks. This is about making sure that women vote for the Liberal Party, which by and large they do.
And you can thank Holly Dona Blacklocks for that, uncovering that piece as well. They don't like her either. They call her yellow journalism. But you can subscribe to Blacklocks if you go online, $313 a year, well worth your subscription. Here's another one from Holly Dona. Federal inspection, here we talked about this a lot. Federal inspectors confirmed a black market in migrant worker permits. That's a Labor Department briefing note. They got to get the Labor Department, these briefing notes to stop, and then they can hide more of this. The department said it would tighten inspection, did public complaints that foreigners have cost Canadian jobs and wages. We see this in the Okanagan too. Misuse includes both buying and selling of work permits, as well as unethical recruitment, exploitation of vulnerable foreign nationals. And we've even some world organizations that Canada runs modern-day slavery, personal and financial gains, and suppresses wages here. This is evidence in types of illicit activities being undertaken by a range of players, both domestically and internationally. The memo did not detail the number of permits used illegally in Canada. Cabinet tightened regulations on employers using 766,520 migrant labor permits in 2023. Lack of inspections. It's just, you just got to shake your head.
Who's surprised?
You just got to shake your head and just wonder. Cabinet in 2024 reduced 12-month work permits to 6 months. Low-wage immigrants hired by restaurateurs and hotel keepers were capped at 20% of the payroll from previous 30%. You got to think about the hotel industry. It's just made out like bandits with this immigration thing. They got the rooms. They're paying for the rooms. And how much is Olivia Chow saying in Toronto? They need $107 million because the federal government says it's going to stop paying for hotel rooms. That's a nice thing. And then plus they get the cheap labor, right? I mean, they get the labor that will work for less money.
It's nothing less than a war, a total war against Canadian labour in an abstract sense, against wages,
absolutely.
Really. And what if we just scroll up, look at Lana Payne there. Has she ever said anything about this? This great hero of the working class? Somehow I think the answer to that is no.
It's comedy. Or it's so sad. It's a tragic comedy. And then we got a clip here from Pierre Poilievre on the Castle Law, because that's another thing that's big in the news right now, the Castle Law that the United States has, and no Castle Law here in Canada.
The law needs to be clear that if someone comes into your house uninvited to steal your property or harm your family, you need to be able to do whatever is necessary to stop them. And my message to the criminal thugs who are invading the homes of Canadians in unprecedented numbers because of Liberal laws is that you should be in serious danger if you go into someone's house illegally and try to harm them. If you don't want to be harmed, then don't invade someone's house and don't threaten their security. The law needs to be very clear that people have the right to defend their homes and their families against lawbreakers.
So the Americans have the Castle Law, and we played this, I think, last week, where we showed the difference between Toronto police advice, where they said, just leave your keys at the front door, so when they break in, they don't disturb you, they just steal your car. And in the United States, the sheriff said, do us a favor and shoot them, save the taxpayer some money. And because they have the Castle Law there, and we're going to talk about a little later the other law they have there, which many people confuse in Canada as having, and then I did that interview that's actually doing really well, is with Amy Ham's lawyer, Lisa Bildy, and saying the Americans have exported all their culture wars, but none of the First Amendment protections of freedom of speech. And we're seeing that in Europe and that too, right? And the UK, another bad place there, right? But the Castle Law, I mean, I don't know, like, I mean, if you're in your own home, I don't know are you going to allow your family to be hurt because you're worried about, you know, like Canada's lax laws on people that break into your home, or are you going to defend your family?
The worst thing of all is, I'm sure you've taken part in conversations with people, like thought experiments about what you would do. The worst thing of all is, it's a very strong point, and it'll often be made in these discussions, is, all right, so let's say you do, so you kill a person or you seriously hurt someone that's invading your home. Are you then, in the long run, actually going to do more damage to your family than would have been done otherwise? Because you're going to go to prison for 20 years or something like that. And then your family will be deprived of a father and a husband and all the rest of it. And it's so sad, that, isn't it? But it almost comes down to being the rational thing to do based on the incentives and the structure of the legal arrangement. The rational thing to do is almost to hide or run away, isn't it? Because that's what the laws create. The laws create that situation.
Yeah. What if you don't have a choice? What if they're about to kill one of your family members?
But then let's say you kill that person, then you've got to sit in front of some clown judge who's, in a very quiet, peaceful courtroom, who's never been in physical danger themselves, and you have to explain to them how you knew they were going to kill you. And if you don't have evidence and it's just your word, then there's a reasonable chance that that idiot judge and a bamboozled, stupid jury will send you to prison. So this is why the imperative must be to have the law in favor of the homeowner, and all benefit of the doubt should be given to the homeowner. And that's basically what happens in the US, isn't it? And that's where we're getting this contrast.
Pierre Poilievre, another little clip, him talking about the Liberals' record so far, and we talked about it at the beginning of the show here, but let's hear it from Pierre himself.
Not one pipeline has been identified, not one LNG plant, not one nuclear plant, not one hydroelectricity dam, not one major project has been identified, let alone approved, in the 160 days since he took office. And all of the anti-resource laws that will make them impossible to complete remain in place. On housing, he said he'd double home building. His housing agency says home building will drop by 13% over the next.
So what has he got done so far? Jack, you can finish that sentence. Nothing. I don't know anything. You got anything?
Carbon tax was removed. Bill C5 was passed.
Well, the carbon tax was removed, but the industrial carbon tax,
military spending promised to be increased. That's another thing. Yeah.
Promises. And what was that? Johnny Cash song, Never Promised You a Rose Garden? Who was that song? I can't even remember who sang that. But
not sure.
Anyway, a new survey shows that for the first time since the election, the Conservatives pulling ahead. And then you've got actually a little graph here showing that generational divides narrowing. Again, the boomers seeming to like it. I post a lot on my LinkedIn if you ever want to go see it on LinkedIn. And the people that definitely are very favorable to Mark Carney are, I would say, I've been trying to figure this out, it's more the university kind of like older boomers, kind of like not entrepreneurs, but just like people that have worked in, obviously people that work in government and that, and definitely young people favor, because they've been priced out of the market in so many different ways. So
I think they would have been in the market for a sort of proper left-wing party as well, but that opportunity was taken away from them, wasn't it, by Jagmeet Singh's incompetence and extraordinarily foolish behavior. So I think those younger people lost that opportunity that they would usually have taken to vote for the NDP or, whatever, some left-wing party. That tends to be what happens when that's on the menu, when there's like a strong left party on the menu. But in the absence of that, they seem to have either not voted or gone for the Liberals. But when it comes to people that work for the government, that's just kind of rational, isn't it? That's like self-preservation, because the Liberal Party has pumped the public sector so much, especially in the last sort of 5 years. Many of them will owe their jobs in the first place to the Liberal Party. So it's something that you often see actually in sub-Saharan Africa, that kind of patronage system where you vote for your guy and he gets you work, he gets you a job. And it's kind of the Liberal Party starting to resemble that a bit, as well as the patronage in terms of like what they dish out to various ethnic groups. Like we've seen that with the Palestinian recognition and all this talk about Islamophobia. That's an attempt to really nail down the Muslim vote and kind of just rack up all these like demographic groups, make sure that they're all liberal voters.
We talk about this a bit too. Like BC again in the top. I think the second top there. The most expensive place to buy a used car. Look at that. You can travel. This is from Well Simple. You can travel from coast to coast, and you can pay for all your rooms and everything, 10 nights in hotels and out of province inspection fees and all that, and still save $4,000 if you went from BC all the way to Quebec or Newfoundland to buy a car. Same car.
Wow.
Eh?
But then you would get shafted, wouldn't you, trying to bring it back?
No, that's after you pay for everything.
Oh, okay, that's actually included. Wow.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? One economy. British Columbia. What a place to be.
And I'm not sure what's going on in Saskatchewan there. They're usually a bit better than that, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's just the West in general looks pretty tough. I guess it's just because of the distances involved or something.
Yeah. You'd think Ontario would be better.
Well, Ontario tends to live up to its nickname of unterrible quite a lot.
Our last story from the Blacklocks here today. Canada shows slight improvement in easing a chronic shortage of doctors and nurses, and that's according to a Department of Health briefing note. The department noted there are still tens of thousands of foreign-trained healthcare professionals who don't get to work in the medical field, and that's what Poilievre said, that he was going to fast-track all this stuff, and we're still dragging our feet on this. Canada's health workforce is facing several challenges, including supply shortages, difficulties retaining, and health worker burnout, because there's just too many people for too few healthcare workers. And there are currently shortage of 23,000 family physicians and 28,000 registered nurses. The department in 2023 memo puts shortages as 89,995. The February 2017 report, Caring for Canadians, put the shortages at 68,000. The improvement went unexplained. And then there's lots of burnout because people are working too hard. I know two people that work in the healthcare industry and said it's just the amount of hours that they're asked to put in is astronomical.
Very deep problem, isn't it?
I did a good interview. I've interviewed a Dennis Storchuk with the Friends of Ukraine there here a couple times, but he brought in a young man, 17-year-old, Max Makvichuk, and had a really candid discussion with Max Makvichuk, whose dad is fighting in the front lines in Ukraine, and he's got lots of friends in the front lines of Ukraine. It's an interview well worth watching because he talks about it from, he shared some stories from his father, and he also shared some stories from his friends. He also showed me a map that was lit up with drones. And he said in the beginning of the war that there was like you would see like 100 of these things on this map in the front lines there. And now it's like swarms, like 500 drones up in the air, just like, like bees. And it's just a meat grinder of amount of people being, and he can't get his work permit here in Canada. He can't get his permanent residency. He can't get it.
Very, very odd.
One of the reasons we did the interview is like, why wouldn't Canada, he's working, why wouldn't Canada allow him to stay? Because if he gets sent back, you know where he's going.
Yeah, well, what do you say, 17? So that I think he needs to be 18, doesn't he? But soon, certainly.
Yeah. So if he can't, but they say that they can't seem to do. They said, if you go watch the interview, they said his English wasn't good enough. And I said, have you called Revenue Canada? Have you called Revenue Canada? They work at Revenue Canada. They can't speak English.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? And they said, go watch the interview and get blown away. This kid speaks good English. And they said his English wasn't good enough for him to get permanent residency. Did they want him to go back into the meat grinder? Is that what they want? Because that doesn't make sense.
But you also you have so many people in Canada from other countries that really don't have much of a fondness for this country, to put it lightly. and they're allowed. They're given citizenship in many cases, whereas this unfortunate chap is being told to bugger off, even though
Hey, he's
he's
working.
quite fond of Canada.
He's actually paying taxes. Go watch the interview. It's well worth your time to watch. It really lets you give you an insight of this young man who, in the next little while may be packing a gun. He talks about what his friends are packing on them and all that too. And he talks about he was in a military school as well before he left Ukraine. But
maybe he can get a job operating the drones. That's probably one of the safer things to do.
But he talked about what the Russian or the Ukraine troops thought of the Russian troops too that were advancing. So it's an interesting discussion. Well worth your time to go watch. It's on Kelowna Now or on this YouTube channel here. You can go watch it and share it if you could. And this is what's going on in England right now. And we're going to play a small clip here, and you can tell us about it because you're from the jolly old England where they fly the Union Jack. Apparently,
Bird just crashed into the window there.
Let's play this clip.
Won't let you in because you've got England flags on. Yes, the one. Not letting people in because of England flags. Why?
Because it's a simple rule by management.
Simple rule by management.
I request that you don't video our staff, please. It's a kind request.
Nah, I'm asking you why you're not letting people in with England flags in England.
I'm happy to serve everyone as long as they're in normal clothes.
No, I just want to put it online and show that this pub. What is this pub?
The Manor.
The Manor. And their management are refusing people with England flags.
We are not involving ourselves in any of these process.
It's not a protest wearing an England flag.
You're like the one from Trump.
That's good. So is that a real deal?
Certainly looks real to me. Yeah. That's the kind of stupid garbage you get from HR people or HR-minded people in England. But there's a campaign going on right now to wave the flag and to put it up places and paint it on like roundabouts and walls and stuff all over the country. They're calling it Raise the Colours, I think. And it's a kind of, like I was trying to say this to you earlier, in England, particularly St. George's Cross, the England flag, the red cross on the white background, that is, believe it or not, people struggle to understand this concept, but it's quite a controversial symbol in England. And a lot of people look down on people that wave the flag around and associate them with xenophobia or racism or whatever. And it's also true to a lesser extent, much lesser extent, of the Union Jack, the British flag. But that was already the lay of the land. And now these protesters have decided that they're going to kind of lean into that, and they're just going to be, visibly patriotic and wave the flag around. And then you get idiots like this woman here. They'll always manifest in any situation like this in England, where they'll just tell you to go away because they don't understand what they're talking about. But they've associated these people with the flags with controversy and possibly violence. So
sound familiar? Freedom truckers with the flag. I remember one of our reporters said that he said to me is that they stole our flag. I'm like, how did they steal your flag? And he said, well, they stole our flag. And I'm like, actually, that's their flag. If they're flying it on their pickup truck, that's their flag. They went to wherever they went and bought that flag. That's their flag. You can go buy a flag. That'll be your flag. But if you're speaking of the flag in general, it belongs to everybody, even the people you don't agree with. That's the point of a democracy.
I seem to recall that CBC not so long ago published, certainly during that period, published articles where it was like, is it offensive to fly the Canadian flag now and stuff like that? How is it best to be? And certainly during the, when that ground penetrating radar found disturbances in Kamloops and everybody started talking about kids that had been murdered and all the rest of it. When that happened and they put the flags down at half mast, it almost got there to it being controversial in Canada to wave that flag. But I don't think it can ever be like England, because in England, a lot of it's to do with class. It's a class war. It's like that's how you understand many things in England, but it's deemed to be low class to have an affinity for the England flag, whereas that's not really true here in Canada. But I don't know, maybe one day we'll reach that abyss.
There's a very important interview that I did with Lisa Bildy, and this is related to the Amy Ham story. But she raises a really strong point, and it relates to this as well, is that the Americans kind of control the media in the world as well, including the military, the economy, and all those things. And they export many of their culture wars into the world, in which they get them. But they don't have the protections like in our society. Like we have a Westminster parliamentary system, and our charter is a lot different than their freedom of expression in their Bill of Rights, their First Amendment clause. We don't have that, but a lot of people watch American television and think they have First Amendment rights here in Canada. They don't have First Amendment. We have these limitation clauses. And Lisa explains it very well, whereas in Canada, she read the paragraph, and then she said, our governments have been working very hard to constrain freedom of speech as opposed to try to expand freedom of speech, because you can interpret that clause very, very generously in the Charter of Rights. And so the Americans are basically an absolute country for freedom of speech. That's their number one. That's their First Amendment right. And here he goes. Here's Trump showing how much this First Amendment rights. And now they're putting out a thing. I think he did an executive order today. Anybody that burns an American flag will do 1 year in jail. And like in Canada, like, I mean, you can do a lot of things to the flag. And the same thing in the UK right now. You can't even display it without getting told that you're not allowed in establishments because you're practicing what you think is your freedom of expression to show a flag.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's such a strong point that about the First Amendment, but something else that we didn't mention is that probably half of the population, or around about that, in the US would like to get rid of the First Amendment. And certainly when it comes to the ruling class in the United States, I'd say it's probably more than half would like to kill that amendment. They don't like it one bit, and they don't like the Second Amendment either, obviously. But it's just the fact that the American system was created in such a way that it's very, very, very hard to change the US Constitution. So what James Madison wrote, 200 and whatever years ago, it kind of sticks, even though it was written at a time. It was written at a time when in England, because James Madison was basically an Englishman, as they all were, George Washington and all the rest of them. They just had English ideas, common law, and some relatively new English ideas from the Glorious Revolution and all that kind of thing. And they were just swimming in that environment. But the thing is, hundreds of years later, as we are now, it's so different. We're not like that anymore. And if you really want an example of that, look at England. England used to actually be the freest country in the world, and it's now authoritarian, I would say. I don't think it's unreasonable or like quirky or weird to call England an authoritarian country now, because it is a kind of soft authoritarianism. So that's happened everywhere, and it's even happened in the US. But because of this like legal quirk almost, they still have this constitution, so they still have to honor that First Amendment. It's just kind of like a relic at this point.
It's almost like those people in the past had to look into the future and put some protections in place. And that's what Lisa says too. She said the Biden administration tried to short circuit the First Amendment by going behind closed doors and bullying the social media platforms like Facebook, and they did with X and Facebook and YouTube and all that. And she said that was trying to skirt the First Amendment, and now they're starting to feel punishments for that. Even seen Mark Zuckerberg said we were forced to do it. And, like same thing with Jack Dorsey and all those guys coming out and saying it was, it was coercion. But so there's some lawsuits and that are happening with that right now. But that protection.
The First Amendment allowed that to happen. But yeah, that was because of the First Amendment. And you say it's almost like they looked into the future. Yeah, it almost is. They were so prescient, the American founding fathers, particularly Thomas Jefferson, but also James Madison, and so many of them. They were so smart. And they also understood human nature. So they understood that even if they founded this glorious republic that was based on freedom and all the old English ideas of liberty, they knew that there was a very real possibility that it would be taken over by tyrants and authoritarians and, all the rest of the rabble of the human species. And obviously they were right. And many times in American history, the attempt has been made to try and take control of America and run it along authoritarian lines. But the Constitution that they conceived in the late 18th century has kept them going this long. And, as you mentioned the punishments that they now receive and all the rest of it, that's because of the First Amendment. So it obviously still works.
Yeah. So you can go watch that interview with Lisa Bildy. It's really well worth your time. It's on Now Media's, or this YouTube channel you're watching right now. It's on Kelowna Now. It's on my LinkedIn. It's on my X. It's there. It's well worth your time to watch. She explains it very, very well. And I also interviewed Gavin Dew last week. Gavin Dew, MLA for Kelowna Mission here. He says BC has the lowest business confidence in Canada, but all NDP government does is blame tariffs while dragging its heels on long-standing issues. Again, go watch that interview as well. A really good interview. But I wanted to talk about this. An independent journalist did this piece here. We're going to play a small clip of it. It's well worth your time to go find it too. It's about 13 minutes long. And trucking has become front and center in Canada and the U.S. And in the U.S., it really became front and center because of that illegal U-turn by the trucker there that was actually got his license, obviously not for full testing, and killed 3 people. He did an illegal U-turn on a turnpike in Florida, and it's been extradited to Florida to face charges there. And there's like 2.5 million people who signed a petition to let him go, just give him community hours. Crazy. Anyway, this independent journalist here, Mocha Bears-again, interviews this Canadian-born Punjabi trucker, and he unloads on the. This thing has had millions of views already, so you may have already seen it, but I'll just give you a small clip of it.
Here. He didn't think that like fucking he killed somebody. He had no fucking remorse, and that's what these guys are all like. This guy just got caught, but they do this every day. They hit people, they crash into people, they cause accidents, crash into people all the time. Since these immigrants started coming here, our truck insurance doubled up.
So do you have a message to what you call the Indian employers? Do you have a message? They're watching you right now. What do you say?
They should go back to their fucking country and stop fucking with mine. Straight up. You guys destroyed my fucking industry. You guys think you're doing well and you're successful because you're able to get trucks. Because you're charging fucking LMI drivers fucking $40,000 to start. That's enough for a down payment for any fucking brand new truck. And then you guys pay them cents on the dollar, even if you fucking pay them. And also you guys neglect fucking maintenance.
That's
you guys
good.
are not...
That's he's got the F-bomb going on there pretty good. Go watch that full interview, and it talks about, because the trucking is real, because this Global did a like investigative piece where they actually went and interviewed, and you could basically buy your license here in Ontario. You could buy your license for trucking, and these things are like 50 tons. And when you meet a car, which is what, 2 tons, like you just think mass. I mean, you don't have to be much a physics major to figure that out. If you go watch that full clip of that accident on the turnpike too, those 3 people were decapitated. They're just driving along, and it could be anybody's family. And we see these accidents. And I mean, you go to Calgary, from Kelowna to Calgary, you see these accidents along where these trucks, they're all over the ditches, and you know, like it's crazy. And what they are doing in Florida now, the entire state of Florida now will be using truck weigh stations as checkpoints to make sure that the people are that are licensed properly. Maybe something that should happen here in Canada, because the CVSE can't keep up. They've closed most of the weigh stations. You know what I mean? Like they used to have these weigh stations all over the place. Most of them have been closed, or they're automated, right? You just walk through and you drive through and the computer picks it up or whatever. That's it. But now trucks are, you know, like a lot of those used to have people in those weigh stations.
Yeah. I mean, I can't help but notice and point out that extraordinary difficulty that even a citizen, never mind a non-citizen, experiences when they try and obtain a gun in this country. I mean, and all the rules and everything attached to it, and how politically how sensitive that is because of the idea that it could kill people. And yet here we have the trucking industry. As you said, corruption's been identified. It can actually be very easy to obtain, you know, a license and a truck and all the rest of it.
And Ian brings up...
They must kill a similar amount of people a year. I would say, in fact, I would wager that trucks kill more people. Like poorly driven trucks will kill more people than guns in an average year in Canada. But it's just this classic thing, isn't it? It's like the inability to identify what really is and isn't a threat. Sometimes we really suffer from that, don't we, as humans? And I think that is just one example. Like you say, like however many tons of a truck driven by somebody that doesn't really know what they're doing. That's extremely dangerous. That's a gigantic threat to your life. And yet it's almost looked upon as if it's like a business licensing issue or something. It's like a commercial question or something like that, rather than a life and death question.
You would think that the mainstream media, the government-funded, selectively funded media, would be picking up on this story like crazy, because we have our own Canadian shame on this. Humboldt, Saskatchewan, and some of our viewers have pointed this out. In Swift Current Broncos, how many young hockey boys were killed when that truck blew through the stop sign there in Saskatchewan and killing those hockey players?
You're saying, why is this not an issue? There's a gigantic elephant in the room between us here, isn't there? Stopping us from speaking, which is that it's about primarily people from India. The drivers come from India, and that's what that guy was saying there. This Punjabi fella just said that. So as a consequence, what's the CBC and the CTV and all of those spineless outlets going to do? They're going to say, give that a miss. It's racist or something like that. Don't
They'll
bother.
tell you. They tell us if we're talking about it, it's racist. But it doesn't explain the fact that that investigative piece. Good job on Global to do that piece and go and see that you could buy a truck license for like $4,000. You could buy your license and get on the road and start trucking. And I know, and I have a friend that has got his trucking license, and it was hell to get his license. Like, it was a lot of work, and it should be, because it's 50 tons. 50 tons. And you need to maintain the vehicles. We did last week, we showed you a piece there that where the guy's brake drum was hanging down. The airbag was hanging down. They don't even inspect the vehicles. Because it's all about money, right? You got to make money, got to make money, got to make money, right? Because, the truckers, they have laws and stuff like that. And this is a big miss by our government selectively funded media. They got to stop all government funding. They got to stop government funding of media. You got to free the press so that we do these stories. Because, and if you can help us get it out there, Matthew, if you love the show, share it, get it out there, because we got to get it out to more people. Because you're not getting this from government-funded media. I can tell you that for nothing.
No, because they're too wedded to the establishment, aren't they? Not just in a monetary sense, but ideologically as well.
And we're
so
getting
this is just not discussed.
And we're getting some big and important interviews here. Again, I said this is the clip here from no clip, I guess, but you can go watch it. It was Lisa Bildy I interviewed on Amy Ham, the young lady, a nurse that was charged. I think she had $93,000 from her professional body in court costs. They levied against her, plus a month's suspension from her job. And she's appealed it, so we'll see where that goes. But it's a good interview.
It's been dragging on a while, hasn't it? Yeah.
It's a good interview. And this one here, again, this is from Jeff Evely. We also interviewed Jeff Evely. He's the former Canadian veteran that served. I can't remember you're going to watch the interview. He served in Afghanistan, I think, a couple of tours. And he was, what was that? NORAD too. But here's the Halifax Professional Firefighters Union with their piece, because they stand at the podium and talk about climate change, and he said it's just the position of the union: the devastating impact of wildfire was made worse by the management's failure to properly plan, prepare, and execute effective response. And the same thing that we've said here in BC. We've interviewed many people. The mitigation and even the fighting of fires, like we had in British Columbia. We interviewed Colson Aviation, which is the largest aviation company in the world with the largest fleet, and they had no contracts at the time when we interviewed them with British Columbia. They were all everywhere else because the British Columbia government said that they were untrained. Yet they weren't trained enough to fly in BC, yet they were flying in Oregon, Washington, South America, and in Australia, and had the largest fleet. Again, the amount of misinformation, these are the same people, NDP and Liberals, talk about misinformation, disinformation. I would say that they're really good at it. If they're talking about it, they're likely the ones leading it. Think of that for a bit. Ottawa Pride Parade shut down by the pro-Palestinian activists. So the Pride organizations have been always promoting Palestine, but it doesn't work the other way. So.
And it never has. This is internecine warfare on the left, but this is a particularly vulnerable facet of the left-wing coalition, which is Islamists and Hamas supporters and all the rest of it, and also just in general Muslims as well. They do not tend to be very pro-LGBT. That's just the nature of it. It's a very socially conservative movement. The whole thing, like Hamas, is obviously, they have a homicidal approach to homosexuality.
And they're
the ones who are in charge of Gaza, and it's not much better in the West Bank. So it's just people often point out the contradictions within the left-wing coalition, and how so many of them are kind of hate each other by instinct. And this is just an example of it in a particularly sort of, obvious way.
How many stories do you think the selectively government-funded media has done on people not in favor of the vaccine? How many stories do you think have been done here in Canada? Because we sure do a lot on pro-vaccine. And this one here again is some Albertans forced to pay $100 for the COVID shot. Well, just if you want to take it, you can come here to BC and you can have mine if you're worried about the $100 shot.
Well, BC doesn't let people with who are registered out of province go in there, so BC aren't. They're not giving it away.
I'll go in with you. You can substitute my arm for it or whatever.
Get in touch with some of the people who sell those migrant worker permits or something like that. They'll sort you out.
So, because health workers and certain seniors are among those who will get the free alongside pregnant women, obese people, and mentally unwell. So you have ways of getting it. I think a lot of Canadians could probably, with the economy here, could probably say that they're mentally unwell.
But I was going to say, it's the fall.
If you need it
this is about
bad.
the fall shot. If you need it that bad, you could better start your fast food regime today until you can be qualified as obese, and then you're sorted.
Yeah, there you go. And this because we promised to do a text thing last year, but we didn't. But we'll try to do it here. But this a guy I follow, 3 Teslas cost less than $1 a day to operate combined. They're only paying 2 cents a kilowatt hour. There you go. I just mounted on mine. I just mounted on mine a Starlink dish. So I put a roof rack on it, and I put a Starlink dish on it, so it's got connectivity. We can use it for news. We can go anywhere. It'll be an emergency response vehicle for news and everything. So, a news hub. And then what we didn't do last week too is we didn't do a lot of our memes. We're gonna brought the memes back here because we just got enough time here. And then here's this is the funny section though, so don't get all worked up. This is the fun part. Here's because we always look for file photos when we're doing stories, and we have one now to use for Mark Carney. And then Quebec pulled all the American liquor off the shelves, and they said that some of it's gone now. They don't know where it went.
It's uncanny valley, that, isn't it? I'm not sure I like that.
And then the elbows up after they capitulated there. Some posing shots there. And then you gotta love this. This is the best shot ever. And you're gonna play the video. You should put that in your phone whenever you're talking with anybody that's telling you that you got to put your elbows up. Just play that clip over and over. We're not going to play the clip. We played it too many times, but there you go. Elbows up.
I wish we did play it. It's got a lot of value, I think. Mark Carney's nondescript head there with his little hoodie on.
I think if you're getting married these days, instead of the chicken dance, which I'm sure many Canadians know, you know the chicken dance, don't you?
Familiar with it, yeah.
The elbows up dance has got to replace the chicken dance.
Yeah, that didn't last long, did it, though, the elbows up dance?
Well, the government selected media there. You got that interview with Michael Geist this week, do you not?
Yeah, I've got something tentatively lined up. That should be a very interesting one.
We got lots on the go here. We're doing the story. We're working on competition for capital too. That's a tough one because we're not winning that battle for competition for capital. That's what old Mark Carney should be talking about. It should be here. Should have a parliament in session. Should be here in Canada, and trying to convince people to invest in Canada. Because how are you right now? It just looks like he's getting three trips to Europe, all on the taxpayer dime. And promising billions. I mean, of course, you're like Santa Claus when you're there. If you're $2 billion to Zelensky, you probably get yourself a nice meal with that. And meanwhile, Canadians can't buy groceries. But hey,
it doesn't. It's not going to play well, is it, with certain people? Especially when you look at that poll that shows the Tories ahead. I mean, the main reason is cost of living. People are still, really struggling, and it's not really been addressed, has it, by Mark Carney? He's said he's going to, but it hasn't actually happened.
Fool of the day? Is there a contest for that? Or is it an automatic win?
I think we've invited her on, so she's won. Really, that's how it works.
Yeah, she's clearly a winner. In that regard.
Of that, at least, that's the one area of life that she's a guaranteed winner.
And then the liberal funding schemes they got to be like, I don't know, like maybe we should do a top 10 list of liberal funding schemes that went south. Because there's a few.
Well, it'd be hard to narrow it down to 10, wouldn't it?
That Serb one, I mean, they're still trying to collect money from people that, because they doled that out to anybody. They just Anyway.
Yeah.
We must obviously have a lot of money to throw around. That's it. That's the show.
A lot of money that we can borrow from,
Sure.
international money markets.
That's the show for today. We're back tomorrow. If you could like and share and subscribe and do all those great things, that'll help us get it out there to more people. That would be appreciated as well. If you like what you see, again, we don't get the amount of money that CBC gets. Actually, zero of it. But at one point, do you think you're getting value? There's a question to ask people watching. Do you think you're getting value from $1.55 billion from the CBC? I don't know. All right, cheers. See you tomorrow. Thanks for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence.